Hey y'all, so today we are reviewing episode 6 of She-Hulk, and I apologize for this review being late, but we're gonna have again a brief, honest conversation. This was not my favorite of episodes. I did kind of like the self-contained nature of it. I, of course, still found the quirky humor funny. I loved kind of all the jokes and poking fun at the things that just kind of surround wedding craziness. Like, I thought, again, going off of what I said last week with girly humor or humor that's like just immediately recognizable to girls, that opening of the bridesmaid's proposal box was just so funny to me. And I overall did enjoy Jen's storyline, although it did feel a little bit predictable, and maybe this is because of the previously on She-Hulk, when they kind of revealed all her dates and trying to be attacked by attackers when like this is a wedding episode, she's going to a friend's wedding. It's like, maybe someone at the wedding is gonna pretend to not know who Jen is and then try to get close to her and trusting. So like that I felt was a little bit predictable. What was missing from this wedding episode was some crazy stuff happening during a wedding ceremony, and I feel like this is where this episode is weak for me, not because I blame a show for being obvious with getting around budget, but like this episode in my opinion could have just been totally scrapped, not because I need every episode to lead to a larger narrative or do anything, but it just felt like nothing really of consequence happened in this episode, and they just wanted a fight between She-Hulk and Titania. I haven't talked about the CGI in this show yet. I don't think I have in these reviews. I don't really mind if it's not the best, but this episode was glaringly the worst CGI, and it was the most clearly, we're on a budget, we need to work around our budget for this episode. But in my opinion, then like why not scrap this episode? And I feel like it comes from all these other Marvel shows have either been 6 or 9 episodes, all of which I'm now realizing are multiples of 3. So to break up a 3-act movie structure into slightly more or, slightly less content is how I'm seeing this now, because I had a discussion with a friend, my good friend Nicholas Alexander Burke here on YouTube. Go check his channel out. We were having a conversation about how all of these new Marvel series to some extent feel like they're just movies that were either more information was added to them, or they didn't feel like cutting the information out, or like it wasn't full enough to make like a really succinct movie. And I haven't felt this way about She-Hulk up until this episode. And trust me, like I still did enjoy this episode. Like a week to week watch, I enjoyed this episode, but I didn't enjoy it as much as other episodes. I think creators of the show did themselves a disservice by having this episode in the condition that it was in, no wedding, poor like CGI, because all this episode felt to me was Jen has to do something, and then all of a sudden she just turns into She-Hulk and gets in a big fight at this event where she shouldn't really get in a fight. And I think the other thing that bothered me is I understand that this bride doesn't want, She-Hulk taking the attention away from her at the wedding, and I thought that was a funny thing that was being played up. It's kind of like poking fun at like the way that women can act towards other women, which is like a big part of the show, and I thought that was entertaining. But then Jen turns into She-Hulk, which is like the one thing that the bride asked her not to do, and all of a sudden she's like fine with it. I don't know, I felt like that was something that, keeping with the Jen versus the She-Hulk, and that people can't accept her for being both at the same time, because I feel like that's the general theme of the show. What's frustrating to me is that like that avenue wasn't explored. It was just like, oh, let's cut to She-Hulk and have her fight Titania in this very inconsequential kind of dumb fight. I guess that was just the thing to me, is everything in this episode felt very unmotivated, and then it also felt, I don't want to throw the word poorly written out there or like that accusation out here, but in the storyline with Mallory and Nikki, who both of which I like those characters. Like I love the fact that this show has recurring side characters, that their storylines are fleshed out like a proper television series, but the series is one, clearly not an ensemble, which means that sometimes when these alternative storylines get equal screen time to Jen's storyline, these characters feel more important, when like Nikki and Pug and Mallory, they're not on the same level as Jen. And so I think that's what's weird, is like, yes, they're not the cameo of the week type people, but it's weird to me that some of their storylines get just as much priority over hers, especially in this episode when it had almost nothing to do with hers other than like the reference to this website. Maybe this episode should have just been reworked, or I kind of have speculation that maybe there was more to this episode that was then kind of gone away with, because it just felt like there were certain parts that were were cut or missing. Like, all of a sudden, Mallory, who is the lawyer, is supposed to be deciding how Mr. Immortal's spouses, that they get all of their proper alimony. But all of a sudden, it cuts to Jen's story, and then it cuts back to theirs, and Nikki is the one, like, doling out the alimony payment. And I think it was confusing because I didn't understand what that represented for Nikki's character. I didn't understand if it's like Nikki wants to be a lawyer and she just isn't yet. If Mallory was really struggling with this case and so she asked Nikki to help her in like a bonding of their friendship, or if like she's sort of put down because she's a paralegal and then she proves that at the end of the day she can help it. But I feel like there was like information there or story time that was just cut. And I honestly, like, in some ways preferred that storyline to Jen's storyline this episode. But again, they got like equal airtime, so I feel like this episode just didn't serve any sort of purpose. Not that it has to. Again, it's television. It's all created for the sake of entertainment, and I appreciate it for that. And I definitely had a good time with this episode. Anyways, those are my quick little thoughts on this week's episode. Please be sure to like this video if you liked this review and want to see more Marvel reviews content, because I do a lot of that on this channel and you're not gonna want to miss it. I've got some good ideas for fall that are coming your way. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have an absolutely amazing day or night whenever you're gonna watch this, and I will see you in my very next video. Bye everyone.